What up, everybody? This is Esoteric Eddie. Namaste. We're going to be reviewing some important points from Zecharia Sitchin's The 12th Planet. Let's go. Scholars thought that man originated 500,000 years ago. Actually, it was 25 million years ago. The transition to man-like apes occurred 14 million years ago. And in less than 50,000 years, we went from Neanderthal to landing astronauts on the moon. Circa 11,000 BC, thinking man appeared. Within 3,600 years, basically overnight in terms of an endless beginning, man became a farmer and wild plants and animals were domesticated. It was as if some unseen coach, Zecharia Sitchin writes, was helping us quickly advance. Chapter 2: Sudden Civilization. Egypt used to be thought of as the oldest civilization, but the Greeks didn't originate in Egypt. Professor Cyrus H. Gordon opened up a new field of study showing Greece stemmed from a Semitic lineage. Greek historians themselves wrote that a Phoenician named Cadmus brought them the alphabet comprising the same number of letters in the same order as in Hebrew. The Western culture came from the Near East empires of Assyria and Babylon. The common language of Assyria and Babylon was Akkadian, the first known Semitic language. Both empires branched from an even earlier civilization named Akkad. The Akkadian script had loanwords that seemed to be not original to its language. A text found at one of Akkad's capital cities, Nineveh, had a significant inscription from King Ashurbanipal stating he was gifted the ability to read the writings of old before the flood by the god of the scribes. January 1869, Jules Oppert at the French Society of Numismatics and Archaeology institutionalized these pre-Akkadian people as the Sumerians, after the mentions of the Empire of Sumer in Akkadian writings. Sumerian sites were excavated and found to hold evidence of a source civilization that gave rise to many of the facets of society that we preserve today. The first Sumerian city was Eridu, with a temple dedicated to the god of knowledge, Enki. Scholars have no real idea on how and why the Sumerian civilization suddenly appeared. Chapter 3: Gods of Heaven and Earth. Everything the Sumerians did was dedicated to the gods. But who were they? Well, apparently the Greek gods and Hindu gods were adopted variations of the Sumerian gods. The cultural avenue in which both the Greek and Hindu received their mythologies was through the Hittites, who had a pantheon of gods, some young and strangely some old. The odd thing about their legends is all the olden gods had Sumerian names: Anu, Antu, Enlil, Ninlil, Ea, etc. The Hittites received their cultural mythologies from the Hurrians, who were a direct contemporary civilization with the Sumerians, whom they traded with. Another ancient civilization that was responsible for the Western world's mythologies was the Canaanites. Their chief deity was El, the father of the gods. All ancient religions, including those of Egypt, spoke of a family of gods headed by a royal few who had advanced skills that at times were symbolized by a winged disc or some sort. Sitchin claims that all of these similarities were not random, and that this long line of cultures worshiping virtually the same gods goes back to Sumer. Chapter 4: Sumer, Land of the Gods. The head of the Sumerian gods of heaven and earth was An or Anu. The second most powerful was Enlil, son of Anu. He was the prototype and father of the later storm gods that were to head the pantheons of the ancient world. The third great god was another son of Anu, known as Ea or Enki. He was a scientist and an engineer responsible for setting up the environment to make it suitable for the gods to work and live. The two brothers would occasionally rival, eventually leading to their obsession with whose seed would eventually take over the throne. As the olden gods aged, the younger gods took control and with passion asserted themselves onto the planet to become the new powers, sometimes warring against each other. Enki's son, Marduk, was a fierce god who subjugated many lands. Enlil's son, Ninurta, and granddaughter, Inanna, famously known as Ishtar, would also be fierce contenders in the game of godly warfare. Chapter 5. The Nephilim, people of the fiery rockets. According to ancient texts, it is clear that the gods had the capability of air travel via vessels. Statues have been found that show the gods with strange apparatus that appear to be similar to what jet pilots or rocket pilots would use, such as the 4,000-year-old statue found at Mari in 1934, nicknamed the Goddess with a Vase, showing Inanna with a strange air travel-like garment. Sumerian texts make substantial claims about some objects called a me, M-E, that was sacred and used by the gods for space travel in their celestial chariots. Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II reconstructed a temple adding a special pavilion for the celestial chariot of Marduk, where the sacred Me were also housed. There was another vehicle in the ancient text that was seemingly used by the gods for air travel called a mu, M-U. The mu was the conical tip of a rocket that is similar to our space rocket, which breaks off after it has taken off into orbit with its own propelling system. The earliest forms of sacred obelisks or pillars were actually meant to commemorate these divine mu, which would be pointed upwards as the gods prepared for air or space travel. There are many tales of human kings in particular being granted the opportunity to travail to the abode of the gods by utilizing mus, like that of the tale of the 13th ruler of Kish, Etana. In this tale, Etana ascends to the skies, when behind him earth gradually becomes smaller and smaller. Sitchin claims that the Nephilim, the strange deities or sons of God mentioned in the Bible, whom in Genesis 6 had intercourse with mankind, were indeed a race of the Sumerian gods. He claims Nephilim has been widely translated as giants, but should be translated as those who were cast down to earth, or the beings that have landed here, in other words, extraterrestrials. 19th century rabbi and Bible commentator Malbim stated that in ancient times the rulers of countries were the sons of the deities who arrived on earth from the heavens and ruled earth, marrying wives among men, creating a royal offspring. Chapter 6. The 12th planet. The Sumerians make it clear that their original gods came here from a home planet. They showed in depictions of our solar system an extra planet resting in the outer reaches. This planet, the 12th planet, was their home. Later Greek and Roman astrology was modeled on a flat earth. However, earlier Greek astronomers such as Hipparchus in the 2nd century BC modeled his astrology after a globed heliocentric model, which was based off of ancient Chaldean or Babylonian sources. To keep track of celestial movements, Babylonians and Assyrians kept accurate ephemerides or data calculating future positions of the celestial clockwork. These calculations were handed down from the earlier priesthoods of Sumer. Through these calculations were the world's first religious calendars created, which we still follow today. The zodiac, named by the Greeks as Zodiakos Kyklos, or animal circle, was actually derived from the Sumerian Ul-Hi, shiny herd, whose 12 symbols were the original. We depict our solar system as having a total of 11 major celestial bodies. The Sumerians depict 12, the normal amount plus their godly planet, the 12th planet, which the Nephilim came from. Chapter 7, The Epic of Creation. An Akkadian seal from the 3rd millennium BC, now at the State Museum in East Berlin, depicts a solar system of 11 bodies circling a sun. This 4,500-year-old depiction shows a planet between Mars and Jupiter. An ancient text deciphered by L.W. King, titled the Enuma Elish, tells a tale of how our current solar system came to be. This tale used to be played out at the height of the New Year festivals in Babylon. The celestial bodies were renamed and reimagined as the gods. In this tale, Earth did not exist, but a larger watery planet named Tiamat. And during our primordial celestial days, a wandering planet named Marduk, after the Sumerian god, traversed through our solar system, eventually making a climactic clash with Tiamat. One half of Tiamat became the rubble that is now the asteroid belt, known in ancient times as the Hammered Bracelet, and the other half became Earth. Chapter 8, Kingship of Heaven. Sitchin claims the wandering planet responsible for Earth's creation was named by the Sumerians as Nibiru, Planet of the Crossing. This planet, not original to our space, has been perpetually trapped in a gravital orbit that consists of a long elliptical journey, consisting of a 3,600-year return. Sitchin claims this story is reminiscent in the Bible and is responsible for some of its mythology about the creation of the universe, and God's doing so by journeying space and crafting the movements of the celestial bodies, and that the winged disc and cross in ancient times were symbols for that planet. Prophetic texts dealing with its return speak of calamities and changes upon earth, and that the biblical event known as the Days of the Lord, in which celestial signs and changes come about, is actually a rendition of the return of Nibiru. According to Berosus, the Babylonian priest astronomer, there were 10 divine kings who reigned on earth, who eventually passed ownership to the humans. This kingship started 432,000 years ago with Alulim. For the Nephilim, 1 year was 3,600 Earth years. The original rulers had longer lifespans than us. Chapter 9, Landing on Earth. In Sumerian text, Earth is seen as the 7th planet because that's how the Nephilim counted it as they approached it from outward. A clay tablet found in Nineveh, unlike others, is a circular disc pertaining some astronomical information. January 9, 1880, the British Royal Astronomical Society had a discussion on the tablet, identifying it as a planisphere, the reproduction of a spherical surface as a flat map. Dr. Fritz Hommel, writing in a German magazine in 1891, concluded it represented a 360-degree view of the heavens, with a focal point in the Babylonian skies. The tablet also contained some strange writings that were hard to decipher and at first seemed as some arbitrary text dealing with magical spells or exorcisms because of some repeated words. Originally only deciphered in Akkadian, Sitchin states the text comes to life when we plug in the Sumerian meanings of the words. What unfolds is a clear description of directions titled The Way by Which the God Enlil Went by the Planets. It is a map on how to get to Earth from outer space. Chapter 10, Cities of the Gods. According to the Babylonian version of the gods' story, they came here looking to build a home away from home. When they first arrived, Earth was in the middle of an ice age. In need for suitable temperature, land for agriculture, wild domestication, and sources for water, they chose the Middle East, close to the major rivers of the Tigris-Euphrates, where an abundance of natural resources laid. Sitchin claims this first habitation of the Nephilim was the biblical Eden. The word stems from the Akkadian Edenu, meaning plain. The Sumerian Eden meant home of the righteous ones. A text titled Enki and the Land's Order describes in detail his first visit to Earth and his struggle in transforming some of its wild terrain into suitable landscape for civilization. The gods were on Earth alone for about 29,000 years, creating cities and structures for their mission. All of the first 7 cities, when looked at as an aerial map, show a precise lining up of the cities ending at a landing path so that the traveling to each city could be easily done by air travel. Their famous ziggurat or step pyramids were also built as observatories to easily locate and guide air travel. Chapter 11, Mutiny of the Anunnaki. The first operations after setting up their cities was to mine for gold in Africa. In ancient caverns in Africa, such as Swaziland, there have been found evidence of human mining activity going all the way back to at least 70,000 BC. Sitchin claims the Nephilim were primarily interested in abstracting Earth's precious metals. Sitchin now introduces the Nephilim as the Anunnaki, which is translated as those who from heaven to earth came. With them came the Igigi, who were of a lower rank, who foresaw the transfer of goods between Earth and space. After many years of working on Earth, the lower gods became frustrated and formed a mutiny, refusing to work. All the gods turned to Enki, and with the help of his science and his companions, he created a new being through genetic processes. This being was solely created to become a worker in place of the gods. Chapter 12, The Creation of Man. Sitchin claims this story of humans being created by the gods is masked in the religious text of the Bible. The Sumerian word for early man is a lulu amelu, primitive worker, and that this idea was reimagined in the Hebrew Bible, where God was worshipped as a master. But Sitchin claims that this word was translated incorrectly, and the original word for worship was avad, meaning to work. So the humans were actually working under their masters. In the Bible, specifically Genesis 6, where man is created, we find the plural context of the Elohim, creating man in their image and likeness. To Sitchin, this is the Sumerian tale reimagined and summarized. The Anunnaki took Neanderthal man and upgraded its DNA with a splicing of their own, resulting in Homo sapiens. This process was not easy, and before perfection heralded experiments gone wrong, producing strange humans, and they even tried human/animal hybrids, which were a disaster. Chapter 13, End of All Flesh. Sitchin claims the story of Adam and Eve in the garden was a symbolic tale of how mankind came to be independent and liberated through their learning of sexual reproduction. Sitchin theorizes that God and the serpent in the story are the brothers Enlil and Enki, Enlil being the more disciplinary skeptic and Enki being the cunning serpent. The commingling of these new earth women with the Anunnaki caused Enlil to be enraged, resulting in the famous story of Noah. There exists an original to the Noah story in Sumerian that tells the story in different detail. Instead of the singular God of the Bible, it is the two brothers struggling towards this dilemma. Apparently, there was a known cataclysm to befall Earth, and Enlil made a pact with the gods to keep this a secret from the humans. Enki broke his promise and saved a part of humanity by warning the ancient Noah, known as Ziusudra in the Sumerian text. Chapter 14, When the Gods Fled from Earth. Sitchin claims the earthly changes that caused the Great Flood were due to the planet Nibiru's return, which caused eruptions in the solar system. This deluge or Great Flood occurred long ago in the constellation of Leo, about 11,000 years ago. Chapter 15, Kingship on Earth. After the flood, the gods were disheartened, having to rebuild much of what they spent about 500,000 years building, so they decided to give us ownership to rule and organize Earth. The first human city was Kish, as the Sumerian texts say, which the Bible repeats as well in its Table of Nations. Thus, the three lands of humans began with Mesopotamia, the Nile Valley, and Indus Valley. The Anunnaki, leaving a few to rule behind the scenes, virtually left Earth all to itself, some returning to Nibiru and some exploring the other untouched areas of Earth. What up, everybody? Namaste. I hope you enjoyed that. Plenty more to come. Please check out the channel, like, subscribe, comment, follow me on Instagram at Esoteric Eddie. Yo, one love.